Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar at Product School. My name is Yogesh Ratnaparkhi and I'm a product manager at Microsoft within the OneDrive and Sharepoint team. Throughout my journey as a product manager, whether working at a small startup or a large tech company like Microsoft, I realized that the onboarding phase is the most crucial time of your career. This is where you make the first impression. This is where people build perception about you. So it's very important of it's very important how you set your brand during this early period in your new role. However, onboarding as a PM is inherently vague and overwhelming because PM is a broad role and you need to learn diverse sets of skills and expand in knowledge areas before you can start contributing. I remember when I was a dev, a software engineer, it was relatively easier for me to onboard. I would take on a proven onboarding strategy, which is to take on a urgent live issue that need to be fixed and pair up with a dev buddy and dig deep into the stack trace and navigate to the very root cause of the issue. And by the time I checked in my code, I would have learned a lot about the code base. And along the way, I would ask a lot of questions to broaden my understanding. And this exercise would prepare me to undertake more substantial work early on. In product management, though, there are a few such straightforward steps to jumpstart this journey. And I recognized this during my previous PM roles and started building a simple framework that would help me expedite this ramp up period. I then further formalized it at Microsoft, and I'm really happy to share that with you today during this webinar. Well, it starts with defining what success looks like. So imagine this is your first week, and you want to ask yourself, how does where do you want to be 3, 4, or 5 months into this new job or a new role? Having this success, having this intention in mind will really helpful for you to organize your early few weeks at a new role. For me, success means three things. Do I have a strong grasp of the product that I own? Can I be treated as a subject matter expert on this product? The second, have I earned the trust of my team? Do they see me as a leader? Do they involve me in decision making? And the third thing is, do I have a clear strategy for the foreseeable future? If I've achieved this, then I have successfully onboarded into the new role. And to achieve this, I believe ramping up on 5 pillars is a key to ensure that you're functional as soon as possible. And these pillars, I believe, are fairly agnostic of the type of the product that you will be owning, where you are in your career journey. So the first pillar is your customers. Pretty obvious, right? Knowing your customer is essential. Everything starts with the customers. So who are these customers? What are their problems? Is the top pillar that you really need to ramp up on. The second pillar is the market opportunity. How does solving problem for these customers through your product will bring value to the business? And how does this align with the overarching goal of your organization? So that's the second pillar. The third pillar is about getting familiarized and becoming an expert in the existing tools, products, and processes. That way, you're grounded in reality and can start making recommendation for the new product that you will be owning. The fourth pillar is the team. Who's your core team? Where do they work? How do they work? Knowing all of that is essential for you, especially as a product manager who leads without authority. And the fifth and most important pillar is leverage a key deliverable, something that's urgent, that's something that's time sensitive, to act as a forcing function to ramp up on all these pillars um, really, really quickly in an expedited fashion. Now, let's look at each of these pillars at at a more kind of detailed level. But before that, to formalize this framework, you will need to establish a baseline. What that means is ask yourself, how do you how do you rank against each of these pillars? You don't have to be accurate. Just just a subjective opinion will suffice at this phase. Work with your manager or a peer or your mentor and assess where do you stand in the first week of your job. You may come from a competitive product line and you may know a lot about the customers because you might be serving the same customers, so you could rank a little bit higher on that particular pillar, but you may know very little about the existing product, for example. And so so that would kind of help you understand where the biggest gap is for you. Why is this important? Why is establishing a baseline really important in your early few days? Because if you think of it, during onboarding, you will be drinking off a fire hose. The world is your oyster, and every meeting, every conversation, every email that you receive in your inbox will seem important to you, and you have this FOMO or fear of missing out. So it's very easy to get lost and doing a lot of things without a lot of outcomes that you can measure. So this framework will help you prioritize the activities. This will help you organize your calendar. This will help you prioritize the conversations that you need to have and the connections you need to make during the first few days. So let's jump into the 5 pillars one at a time. We talked about customers. And what I mean there is really having an interaction, a real interaction with your customers. I remember when I was starting a PM role for the first time in my career, my manager did something really amazing. He sent me on a business trip to visit 2 of our top customers. And visiting these customers on site and observing the ways they worked was an eye-opening experience for me. When I was back in the office from this trip, I thought I had rewired my brain from being this fix-it, solve-it guy to someone who was now more curious about the customers and what problems they were trying to solve through our product, what their unsaid, unmet needs were. All of these were super important for me to start making a meaningful contribution to the product that I own. Now, this step might seem overwhelming. You may feel like I don't know enough to get in front of the customer, and that's okay. The idea is to listen in this phase. Work with your marketing or customer success team and get in front of the customer, even if that means being a fly on the wall and just listening in. And starting with just a few conversation is okay in this particular phase because this will unlock more avenues and you will get better at having better and more meaningful conversations with the customers. So starting somewhere, starting small is the key. You don't always need external customers. Your product may be serving an internal set of customers. It could be a support team that your product is helping. So start with them, or your product might be a suite of APIs, and your customer is really a dev community. In that case, start chatting with the devs, that dev community that's easily accessible to you. Many companies have customer advisory boards, and that's another great example of how you can leverage kind of interacting with customers and learning about their problems. What this will do is validate the problem. It will clarify the why of your product management role. This is fundamental for you to stay passionate, stay inspired for your current role, and bring true value to your product. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is understanding the market opportunity. What that means is, how do you bring value to your company by solving these problems of the customers that you understood? What is your company's mission? What is the company's overarching goal? And how does your product fits into the overall strategy? Knowing all of this will put you in this business mindset, will have a super outcome based approach to your thinking, so that you're not considered just a feature PM, but someone who thinks in terms of the business, which is really, really important in your new role. So understanding your key metrics and going through the strategy decks that the previous PM or your manager or partner teams have presented with the customer or the stakeholder or the board members are great resources to get ramped up on this. Ask a lot of questions to your leadership team or your manager or your customers, your sales team, marketing team, whatever whatever resource makes sense to you to get a hold of this particular pillar is really important here. And once you have this understanding, then you are able to look from this impact aspect of the product. And for that, which brings to our third pillar, you need to really get familiar with the status quo, which means what are your current products and tools that you use to solve this business need. And when I say familiarize, really get hands-on here, play with this product, get a test access or sign up for a subscription if it's a subscription-based product, watch product demos, file bugs on the product so that you really get familiarized with not just the core scenarios, but the edge cases. Ask a lot of questions. See from the perspective of the end user or the customer who use this product. Now, you say you don't have an existing product. You're that lucky person who is now launching a V.5 or V1 product, and you really don't have anything today. Even then, you always have existing processes or manual steps or some workflows that you're trying to automate through this product. So go through that, be part of that workflow and get a first-hand experience of that, so that you ground yourself in the reality of where things stand today and where you want to take it further. One more thing here, products often don't sit in silos. They work with an ecosystem. So when you are ramping up on this third pillar, make sure you also play with the associated tools or products that work in combination with your product. That way you have a holistic understanding of the current system. It doesn't hurt to explore competitive products as well. Many competitive products allow free subscriptions that you can kind of subscribe and play with this and get a really good understanding of the whole ecosystem. So that's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is really investing time in building personal connections and learning your team. As they say, alone you can go fast, and together you can go far. And this is really important for PM, which I said is a leadership role without any authority. You lead by influence. And for that, you need to understand your team. You need to understand what motivates them, what their aspirations are, and how they prioritize their work. Often you work with resources that are shared across different product lines. So understanding how your product is prioritized against other things they have to do will help you be more effective when collaborating with them. When I was onboarding at my current role, I learned that my team was 100% remote in a completely different geography. And when I visited them on site and chatted with them in person, I realized how different their style of working was. They worked in a completely different culture. And learning that was super valuable for me because when I got back to the office, I knew how to effectively communicate with them. I learned that the teammates were not comfortable with really broad email threads or really broad broadcast style messaging. So I organized the communications so that we had small private channels for the core team where they would feel comfortable asking questions and sharing their ideas. I also learned that they preferred written communication more than verbal communication because that would help them process the information at their own pace and ask questions asynchronously. So knowing this really helped me understand how to effectively partner with them and and lead them on the mission that we were up to. So really take time. These early few days and weeks are important to build that rapport. And as I've always experienced, the first impressions are the last impressions. So this is your opportunity to earn their trust, to let them know that you are here to help them and and be their best friend, best partner on this product area. And the fifth and the most important pillar is leveraging a deadline-driven initiative to jumpstart your journey. As I said, product management is a broad role. You may be in hundreds of meetings, might have read hundreds of emails and watched through hundreds of trainings and yet not be functional as a product manager. Unless you have a tangible deliverable, you will not get the confidence. You will not learn the full scope of your work. So pick something that's urgent. It's okay if you pair up with a buddy. It's okay if you don't have your own point of view and just help execute something that is already laid out for you. But going through this process will make sure that you learn the full spectrum of shipping something within your product area. There may be a feature that you need to launch, or there may be an important announcement that you need to do with marketing. Regardless of what it is, having something tangible, having something that kind of like you can say you shipped is critical here. And this is where I can draw a parallel with my dev days, where whenever you can be hands-on, then you can really start learning the real things that goes into your product. And as I said, this will act as a forcing function to expedite your learning. So you ramped up on these 5 pillars in your new role using the framework. How have you ramped up? You started with a baseline. Now reassess yourself. How do you rate against each of the pillars? Again, accuracy is not the key here. It could be subjective. But the idea is to understand how far you have come along and what are the gaps that you need to fill in the near term. Again, work with your manager. There is no shame in being behind on some of these pillars. That's not the goal here, is to judge, to be judged. But the goal is to be super intentional about the areas that you need to ramp up so that you can start contributing. For me, my 5 month chart looked something like this. I know I can never be at 10. It's a continuous improvement, continuous learning process. And it's not limited to my onboarding. But having this framework, especially during the early days, is really important so that you're intentional about every activity that you take on. And now that you have ramped up on these areas and you've come a long way, how does success look like? Fast forward 5 months into your new role. Do you think you onboarded successfully into this new role? And what to me, what that means is, do I have a strong grasp of the product? How do I know I have a grasp? There are some signals I can look for. Can I be treated as an SME on the product? Can I support a sales call? Or can I give a demo to a potential customer? These are strong signals that I have really um, onboarded on the product area that I'll be owning. And have I earned the trust of my team? Do they involve me in decision making? Do they do they align with some of my suggestions? Do they think that I'm asking the right questions? All of this will tell you if you have earned the trust of the team. And finally, do I have a strategy for the foreseeable future? If I run into the CEO or the product lead or one of the stakeholders, can I give an elevator pitch on what we're thinking for the next 3 to 6 months? If I can, then I have a good handle on the strategy for the foreseeable future. And if you could kind of check boxes on all the three, then you have successfully onboarded. And you'll get this vibe. You will see people telling that you don't seem like a newcomer. That means you've onboarded really well. You will be treated not as the new kid on the block anymore. And when that happens, you did your job well. So that's my 5 pillar framework for onboarding effectively as a product manager. While I encourage you to use it during your early days at a new role, this framework can be utilized at any phase of your job. As I said, product management, like any other career, is a continuous improvement and a continuous learning experience. So this is a framework that I keep in mind every time that I assess where I am in my career. I hope you found this framework helpful, and I hope you can leverage this in your current or a new job that you're about to take. Thank you very much for attending this webinar and listening to me. I really appreciate your thoughts and feedback. So feel free to reach out to me. You can connect me on LinkedIn, and would love to hear from you. Thanks a lot, and have a great day or evening based on where you are.